Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey. Chapter 4. 1. I came into my father's house as a stranger. I cannot express the feeling which it gave me of utter separation from all that had made up the years I had spent there. The house seemed diminutive, the trees dwarfed. Nothing was as it used to be, except the lake and the high arches of the sky. My mother lay in bed, a waxen figure with silver hair, yet the rooms were peopled for me by slender, energetic ghosts of her, restless, busy, worrying over my little lies, tying my father up in gingham aprons. But now she was not restless or busy. No matter how much she might wish to follow the old paths, her feet could no longer tread them. She was often in great pain, and hour after hour my father would sit beside her bed, holding her hand, and sometimes when I passed the door I would see him on his knees beside her. I knew then how life had knit them together. In earlier years their dreams may have differed, but in their long sharing of a common lot they had grown close in spirit, and I realized that to my father my mother had become once again the girl who had led him into high paths of duty for his soul's sake. Outside my mother's room the whole house bore the stamp of Rose Drury's occupation. Her personality pervaded everything. The bare beauty of shining cleanliness was no longer apparent. Although it was clean enough, it was only that it was not so shining nor so orderly. Yet there was a certain color and glow which the place had lacked in my mother's time. Rose's pink sweater on a chair, the bright pink of the gingham dresses which she wore, wools out of which she was knitting another sweater, heaped high in a basket, a bunch of pink roses crushed into a bowl on the center of the table. The meals which she put on the table were most generous, and, I may as well admit, more tempting than my mother had ever served. Our menus had been in a sense ascetic. We had always had enough to eat, but no time or money had been wasted on our appetites. Rose gave us great dishes of meat in their own rich gravies. She baked cakes for us, black with chocolate or white with coconut, and she ate them herself, sitting at the end of the table in her pink dress and with her pink cheeks matching the roses of the bowl. Because death stalked under that roof, I swung back once more to the things I had forgotten. Forced to face a future without my mother, I asked myself again questions about eternity. When the breath left that frail body, would the spirit live on and on, as my father believed? Yet I did not want to think of death. I wanted to drink of life, to share with Mimi youth and joy, all vividness of experience. I felt that every moment away from her was a lost moment, that even now she might be drifting towards some destiny which would shut me out. I wrote her long letters of eloquence and entreaty, if she would only wait. Her notes in reply were brief. She had nothing to promise, and gradually I lost the assurance which had come to me in that one moment of her surrender. I grew depressed, wishing to escape from among the shadows into some space illumined by hope and happiness. Every day my mother was growing weaker. When the pain was not too great, she liked to have me sit beside her and talk to her of my future. "What are you going to do with your life, Cherry?" "I should like to write, Mother." She pondered that. "What kind of writing?" "Books." What I really wanted was to write plays, but I should never have dreamed of telling her, nor that an almost finished manuscript of one was at that moment in my desk upstairs, To my mother, the theatre was a place of evil influences. She would have been shocked and startled to know of my ambitions, so I did not tell her. Her bright, pain-filled eyes were upon me. "I wish you might have preached like your father." "I shall never be as good as my father." "You mustn't say that. He was a boy like you when I met him, not yet having found the world's need of him. I felt that he could do bigger things, and he has done them. I hope that you may meet a woman some day, Jerry, who will bring the wish for bigger things into your life." I had met the woman, but I kept that to myself. The big things to which I aspired would have seemed small in my mother's eyes. To write a play, to marry Mimi, to be lord of my own wide acres. She would have blown all these ambitions away with a puff of her breath. To know the Lord and to serve him, all else counted as nothing in the sum of her hopes for me. So it was, as always, to my father rather than to my mother that I poured out my heart. I told him first of the manuscript in my desk. "I'd like to read it to you. I didn't do it alone. Lionel Clark and I are collaborating." "Bring it down." I was glad to do it, and I read it to him as we sat under a big maple tree in the front of the house. The sun was setting as I finished, and as I looked up I saw that my father's gaze was on the luminous sky, where the two golden clouds floated in almost breathless clearness. "There's talent there, and your theme is big. Fix your eyes on the stars, Jerry. You can't go far wrong if you do that." Yet I knew that he had fixed his eyes on the stars, and to what had it brought him? Poverty, this bare parsonage, a lonely old age when my mother left him. Never would I set my feet in such a path. Never, never, never. 2. It was on the day before my mother died that I told my father about Mimi. Confession was easy. I was consumed with a desire to speak her name to someone. I wanted to dwell on her beauty, her remoteness from the rest of the world, her graciousness to me. I was bursting with big thoughts, dreams, hopes, and these things cried for utterance. We were in the church when I talked to him. It was Saturday night, and we had brought flowers from our garden for the vase by the pulpit. This had always been my mother's office, and she had worried lest it should not be done. My father had not let her illness interfere with his preaching. Heavy-hearted though he was, he still spoke to his people and found refreshment, I think, in doing it. When the flowers were arranged finally in the big vase, I came down to where he stood, waiting for me in the dim aisle. "I want to tell you something," I said. "Do you remember, years ago, you said that some day I should find the woman who would hold my soul in her hand? Well, I found her." He did not seem surprised. He stood there beside me, tall and stiff in his black coat. "I thought it might be so, Jerry. You are much changed." "How am I changed?" "You live in a world of your own. Your body is here, but your thoughts are far away." He was smiling at me, and I knew him for the same man to whom I had poured out my soul as a boy, that whatever might be stiff and formal in his outer aspect, there was softness within and sympathy. I described Mimi, sitting down in one of the pews to do it, and he sat beside me and listened. When I was through, he said, "She doesn't love you." "She says she doesn't know. She's very proud, and they've always had money, and her family is very distinguished." "And she wants these things in you?" "Yes, but I tell her that someday I'll make a name for myself, and that she won't be ashamed of me." Love is never ashamed, Jerry. But she has a right to expect that I shall give her something in exchange for all she would give me. If you give her youth, hope, aspiration, she can give you no more than that. I know I was eager, assured, and someday she's going to give it. How can you know that? Life couldn't be so cruel as to take her away from me. Life is often what we call cruel. I saw him clench his hand as it lay on the back of the pew. But we have to bear it and find the good in it. I couldn't bear it if I lost Mimi. You would have to bear it, as I have to bear losing your mother. It was the first time he had spoken of it. There was a break in his voice, an agony. I laid my hand on his, yet even in the face of what he was feeling, I would not admit that losing my mother could mean to him what it would mean to me to lose Mimi. Mother loves you. You know she is yours throughout eternity. But if I lost Mimi, I should go alone through all the ages. Oh, it was utterly high-flown, but I was much in earnest. And he knew it and put aside his own sorrow to help me. Perhaps it would be the best for you to meet the situation strongly and put her out of your life now. Oh, no, my voice was sharp with the fear of it. Why should you say that? Because you have nothing to offer her, and she wants things offered. I have my ambitions, Father, and someday I shall have Uncle Jerry's ranch. His sad, steady eyes met mine. You are counting on that? Why not? You won't have it until he dies, Jerry, and there is nothing more stultifying than waiting for dead men's shoes. But I'm not waiting. I'm going to work and achieve and make her love me, and nothing else will matter. He stood up and laid his hand on my shoulder. No, nothing else will matter, and when it comes to marriage, it is the best to say hands off to everybody but the two people concerned. I might tell you that Mimi is neither of your kind nor class, and that there's danger in that. I might point out that she is utterly unfit to be the wife of a poor man, such as you must be in all probability for some years to come. I might say that you are on the wrong track when you build your future on so frail a structure as writing a play and inheriting a ranch. Yet what do I know of the fires you two may kindle, or to what heights your love may sweep you? So it is in the hands of God. I can only ask that He will give you the best, and make you worthy of it. It seemed to me that he had never been so fine as when he put behind him all the prejudices which might have ruled him at this moment, and thought only of how he might meet me on some high ground of mutual understanding. Only remember this, he said after a moment, that there must always be truth between you, never anything less. I assented eagerly. It seems to me astounding that I should not then have grasped the fact that my imagination was already weaving a web of falsehood which was to enmesh both Mimi and myself. So real to me was the future which I had painted that night under the moon. 3. It was on Sunday at dawn that my mother died. I was not with her, and my father came to my room in the grey of the morn and laid his hand on mine. I opened my eyes, startled, and when I saw his face, I knew what had happened. She just fell asleep, he said. We walked to the window and looked out. The world was very still, with now and then the sweet clear note of some waking bird. Love doesn't die, Jerry, he said. Thank God for that. I went and stood beside him. It was wonderful that you could have all these years together. Yes, he said, it is wonderful. I think that in both of our minds, death gave back to my mother some of the aspect of romance which she had lost in those busy years. I know that my own vision pictured her as she must have seemed to my father on her wedding day. I saw too in their faithfulness the faithfulness which might be mine and Mimi's. The love affair of my father and mother gained in depth and significance because of my own. That day my father did not occupy the pulpit. He stayed in his study or in my mother's room, pacing restlessly between them. The rest of the house was taken over by the women of the congregation, who helped Rose Drury set everything in order and who brought over cooked food of every kind that we might have enough for any arriving guests. I too stayed in my room as much as possible. I had been in to see my mother and had found that my father had placed in her hands a bunch of pansies which had bloomed in her own garden. She looked very pretty and young in spite of her silver hair, and I was glad to leave her there, serene and waxen, and to go back to my room and pour out my heart to Mimi. I wrote in a perfect luxury of sorrow, embroidering elaborately the theme of my parents' constancy and devotion. It seemed to me that she must be touched by it, and that her pity would be akin to some warmer and deeper emotion. The funeral was to be on Tuesday. We had sent word to my father's mother, whose home was in an adjoining town. She was very frail and was unable to come. She lived with an unmarried daughter, my Aunt Mary, who was also kept away by the need of my grandmother for her. Rose Drury became therefore in effect the mistress of the house, and I must say that she carried off the honours well. She clothed herself in a black dress which toned down the pink and whiteness, and which gave her an air of real refinement. She marshalled the forces of women, and under her direction they made sandwiches and brewed coffee and cut cakes for the crowds who would come from a distance and who would partake our hospitality after the sad ceremony. So we left my mother in the little burying ground where I had years ago sat with Theresa, and my father and I came home alone. I stayed on then for some weeks. I could not leave my father when he needed me so much. We had not talked over any plans. I simply drifted, writing to Lionel, writing now and then to Mimi, eager to get back to them both, but held to my father's side by my sense of his dependence upon me. Finally, one night he said, "We must talk about your future, Jerry." I told him that I had no plans. "But of course you won't stay. I don't expect it. And I have been thinking that it might be well to have my mother live with me, and my sister. Mother will not be with us long, and then Mary and I can go on together. And the home will be here when you want to come, Jerry, and always a warm welcome. You must have a wider life than mine, Jerry," he said later. "I have no regrets. My life was, it seemed, planned for me, and I have lived out the plan. But for you, there will be something perhaps more vivid, more adventuring. I should like to think it, but you must never let it separate us. I want to feel always that our souls are knit together. I can never give to you, as I saw it, the beauty of his worn face, the strength of his belief in the rightness of it all. With, it seemed to me, nothing left, he was leaning on faith, as he had leaned in the old days when we had walked and talked together. I told him that I should like to go west, that I should like to live in the same town with Lionel and work out our dreams together, that I wanted to be near Mimi. Uncle Jerry says he will keep up my allowance, and very soon I ought to be earning something. don't depend too much on your Uncle Jerry." "I shan't when I once get started." He was silent for a time, and then he said, "I sometimes wish that Jerry had not come into your life." I was indignant. "Why should you say that, Father?" "I am afraid you might have been weakened by an expectation which may not be justified. Jerry spends as he goes. There may not be much left." I was cold with apprehension. "But there would always be the ranch." "Unless some misfortune comes to him. Perhaps you and I build too much on futures, Jerry. I have given you the inheritance of a dreamer. It might have been better if you had had more of your mother's practical nature. But then we are what we are, I fancy. Only you must put foundations under your dreams, Jerry." I felt that I was putting them. Lionel on his way down from Maine was to stop in New York and see a playbrooker. The play wasn't finished, but it wouldn't hurt, Lionel said, to feel around a bit and have a peep at prospective markets. And I had fancied that in Mimi's note of sympathy there had been a hint of warmth which might be made to burst into a flame. What more encouragement did I need than this, that my friend and the woman I loved had a welcome for me? These were the firm foundations of my structure of dreams. I told my father goodbye at the door of the parsonage. My grandmother and my Aunt Mary were already settled comfortably under his roof. My Aunt Mary was to occupy my room, and my grandmother the guest chamber. My father kept the room in which my mother had died as his own. My grandmother's taste was like my mother's. Life was for them, I should say, neutral tinted. Yet in their own way they got a good deal out of it. I was glad to find, however, that Aunt Mary was different. She wrapped herself now and then as she went about the farm in a great red cape, as colourful as the flame of an autumn tree. "Mother hates it," she confessed to me, "and I never wear it away from home." "It is very becoming." "Well, it warms my spirit as well as my body. When I get to heaven, I'm going to have red wings, Jerry." We laughed together. "You are like Father," I told her. "Yes, but Eleanor always held him down, and Mother holds me. My red cape is my declaration of independence. I always put it on when I want to show Mother that I own my soul. There are days when I feel as if I should like to wear it to church." "Why don't you? Father would love it." "It would be to him like a column of fire in the wilderness." I could never face Mother afterward. No, I shall have to look forward to my red wings, Jerry. I was glad that my father was to have Aunt Mary. Somehow I felt that her spirit would light the bare, clean house, as her cape would have lighted the church, and that my father's life would be brightened by the glow of her fine humanity. When I left him standing alone on the little porch, where my mother had stood so often beside him, I wished, just for the moment, that the old days might come back, when my father had made my world. Yet they would never come back. I was being swept on by forces so strong that I could not stem the tide. The world which my father had made for me was to live only in my memory of those high moments which we had spent together. End of chapter 4. From the novel Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey,